Characters cannot be everything all at once. A hero who is flawless isn't just unrealistic, they're boring. Without flaws, challenges, or real consequences, characters become caricatures, alienating audiences rather than inspiring them. And this problem is particularly acute when it comes to the writing of strong female leads. Take She-Hulk, for instance. Whilst it aimed to create an empowering figure, the result was a protagonist who often felt overly idealized, with victories handed to her rather than earned. The writing seemed more interested in proclaiming her greatness rather than showing us why we should care, and that's being polite. The show was an utter abomination and a painful watch. With shallow conflicts and one-note characterization, She-Hulk serves as a glaring example of how not to approach writing a female lead. But it does not have to be this way. There are examples of female leads who are well written, grounded, and genuinely compelling, just like the Lioness. Now, this show doesn't just give us a strong female lead, it gives us a real one. A character who is complex, flawed, and undeniably human. Now, this isn't the usual kind of video I make on here, but having just finished watching season 2 of the show, I thought I'd explore what makes it so good and why I found it so enjoyable. But first, if you're enjoying videos and you want to see more of them, then do please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel and pushes me to make more videos on a frequent basis. Now let's start with what the Lioness gets so right: character depth. The protagonist isn't flawless as a superhero, and that's exactly why she resonates. She is flawed. She struggles. She makes mistakes. And most importantly, those mistakes carry real consequences. And some of those consequences and choices affect her psychologically. She isn't impervious to the toll that her career takes on her. There are moments of self-doubt, of guilt, where the audience witnesses her struggle to reconcile her personal and professional lives. And it's these vulnerabilities that make her relatable and create an emotional anchor for the viewer. Contrast this with many quote-unquote girl boss characters who seem to skate through life unscathed. They deliver snappy one-liners, and they struggle to rarely go beyond surface-level inconveniences. Again, coming back to She-Hulk, the show frequently tells us how capable and powerful she is, but the challenge feels trivial, and her victories feel unearned. Whereas in the Lioness, strength is not proclaimed, it is demonstrated through action and perseverance. And what also sets the Lioness apart is its avoidance of cliches. The protagonist does not rely on performative empower moments to prove her worth. She's not constantly reminding everyone that she's strong. She just simply is. Her strength comes from her actions, her decisions, and her willingness to endure. And it is this understated approach that is far more compelling than the over-the-top bravado we often see in poorly written female leads. One of the most important elements of a compelling story is the stakes. If nothing is truly at risk, then nothing really matters. And in The Lioness, the stakes are deeply personal and incredibly high. The protagonist's choices don't just affect her job, they ripple through her entire life, particularly her relationship with her family. The pursuit of her career comes at a cost. Her marriage begins to fracture under the strain of her long absences and the secrecy surrounding her work. Her children grow distant, resentful of a mother who is rarely present. And it's these sacrifices that ground the story of the Lioness, making her victories bittersweet and her failures devastating. This realistic portrayal of sacrifice is one of the show's greatest strengths. The protagonist doesn't get to have it all. Her career is demanding, and the consequences of her choices are palpable. When she succeeds, it's not without losing something along the way, whether it's time with her family or a piece of her own emotional well-being. Once again, in comparison to She-Hulk, where the stakes often feel inconsequential, sure, she might face professional challenges, but her personal life remains largely intact. There is no sense that her choices carry weight or that failure is a real possibility, whereas in The Lioness, every decision matters. When the protagonist falters, it's not just her career on the line, it is her entire life. The show's grounded world building also deserves credit. It does not rely on overblown conflicts or deus ex machinas to resolve problems. There is little to no plot armor to protect the protagonist. Her successes are hard-earned and her failures feel real. This is a stark contrast to shows like Supergirl, where the lead often feels invincible. And whilst that show does certainly have its moments of struggle, the protagonist rarely faces challenges that feel insurmountable. Her victories often feel inevitable, stripping the story of tension. Whereas in The Lioness, nothing is guaranteed, and uncertainty keeps us invested. Empowerment is one of the most misunderstood elements of writing a strong female character. Too often, writers confuse empowerment with perfection, creating leads who are unrealistically skilled, confident, and unstoppable. But empowerment isn't about being flawless, it's about overcoming challenges and growing stronger because of them. There is also a subtle but crucial distinction in how the Lioness portrays achievements. Zoe Saldana's character doesn't succeed by proving herself superior to everyone else. She succeeds by showing up, doing the work, and adapting to the challenges in front of her. Her victories feel collaborative and grounded, rather than forced moments of individual triumph. Contrast this with, say, Rey in Star Wars The Force Awakens, who seemingly masters complex skills like piloting, lightsaber combat, and the Force, with little explanation or struggle. While Rey's story has its merits, her rapid ascension undermines the sense of effort and perseverance that makes characters like the Lioness protagonists so compelling. Another point I want to briefly make whilst on the topic of action is the standout feature of Zoe Saldana's emotional range. She is not stoic or invulnerable. She experiences fear, doubt, and heartbreak, but these moments of vulnerability only enhance her character. When she triumphs, it feels earned because we've seen her struggle. In one particularly powerful scene, she breaks down after the mission goes wrong. It's raw and unfiltered, and it reminds us that strength isn't in the absence of emotion, it's in the ability to keep going despite it. To truly appreciate what the Lioness does right, it is worth examining what other shows get wrong. One of the most common pitfalls is the tell, don't show approach. She-Hulk is a prime example of this. The show repeatedly tells us how powerful and capable the protagonist is, but is rarely showing us why we should believe it. Her victory often feels unearned, and her challenges lack real stakes. Another issue is the lack of meaningful challenge in many female-led stories. Shows that place their protagonists in situations that are more comedic or dramatic scenarios make their struggles feel shallow, and their success feel inevitable. In contrast, The Lioness gives its protagonist real stakes, real sacrifices, and real failures. Her victories aren't handed to her, they are hard-fought. Finally, many shows rely on stereotypes to define their female leads. Supergirl, whilst enjoyable in its own right to some, often falls into the trap of portraying its protagonist as overly idealized. Brave, kind, and endlessly capable, but these qualities come at the expense of depth and relatability. The Lioness's protagonist avoids these pitfalls by being multifaceted. She's not just strong, she is vulnerable, and she is conflicted, and she is human. The Lioness shows us how to write a strong female character the right way. By grounding its protagonist in relatable flaws, meaningful stakes, and earned triumphs, it creates a lead who feels real, compelling, and genuinely inspiring. She's not a girl boss as such in the superficial sense. She's a complex, fully realized character whose strength comes from her perseverance, not her perfection. In an era where many female leads are written as idealized symbols rather than relatable people, the Lioness stands out as a masterclass in character writing. It reminds us that true empowerment isn't about being flawless, it's about facing challenges, making mistakes, and coming out stronger on the other side. So, the next time someone asks you how to write a good female lead, point them towards the Lioness. It's proof that when you focus on depth, stakes, and authenticity, you don't just create a girl boss. You create a character worth rooting for. If you have any thoughts on the topic, or any comments you'd like to make about the show, then do, please, put them in the description below. And thank you for watching.